Hi everyone, I'm Deanna Minnick. Hope that you've been watching my videos so far talking about eating the rainbow. I also talked about red colored foods. So next up is orange colored foods. When was the last time you had an orange colored food? And there are so many different ones that we can be looking at and choosing in the grocery store these days. So when I think of orange as a color and what it corresponds to in the body, I think of protecting the body's fat stores. I know that that might sound kind of unusual, but your fat tissue can become inflamed. And so these types of antioxidants that you find in orange foods tend to go into the fat portions of the body. So as an example, in the skin, so we have a fatty layer of the skin. This is called the epidermis. And in fact, if you start eating lots of orange colored foods, what tends to happen? You start looking like an Oompa Loompa, right? You start taking on that hue of orange. However, that can be a relatively healthy thing to some degree, not to the point that you start looking like an Oompa Loompa, but that you have a little bit of those compounds coming into areas like not just the skin, but also the brain. The brain is also very fat rich, lipid rich, and certain other parts of the body. Usually when we think of the fat stores of the body, we think of hormones and hormone balance. So one of the trends I've seen, the patterns in the literature, is that there's a connection between things like beta carotene and these carotenoids and some of the hormones in the body. At least as we see that mostly in animal studies. So we do need some more human clinical trial data. But I would say I spent 3 years of my graduate training focused on these orange colored compounds and the benefits that they have in the diet. So let's talk about some of the foods that contain these beautiful orange compounds. Apricots, fresh apricots. I just bought some today, actually. Blood oranges, which tend to be red and orange. They have a bit of the orange hue as well as the red. Cantaloupe, carrots. Now, don't forget that with carrots and some of these other foods, yes, of course, with fruit, we want to eat that raw. But when it comes to things like carrots and things that we can cook, it would be better to cook those foods in order to get these carotenoids, these plant-based compounds from the food. So cook your carrots, have them with a little bit of fat, whatever you choose, whether olive oil, a little bit of butter, some kind of oil in order to help with the absorption of these carotenoids. Kumquats, when was the last time you had a kumquat? They're very small, they're very tart, they're a citrus fruit, they're very tasty. Mandarins, mangoes, nectarines, which I also talked about in the red section. And of course, they kind of take on that red and orange colored hue, depending on the nectarine itself. You have red bell peppers, you also have orange ones. And then there are oranges. Papayas, which I would say if it's in season, definitely try to get a papaya. It's very rich in certain types of carotenoids that we don't normally get in the average diet unless we're eating some of these tropical fruits. Passion fruit, peaches, persimmons. Is your mouth watering yet? Pumpkins, sweet potatoes. In fact, just today at Fred Meyer, I bought a sweet potato rice. It's not actually rice, it's kind of like a rice where the sweet potato has been chopped up very finely and you use it much like you would a rice dish so that you don't have all of the carbohydrate and the glycemic impact of rice. You have sweet potato, which has more of a just greater nutrient density. You get, again, these orange colored compounds, which can be very healing. Tangerines, that's one of my favorite foods is tangerines. When they're in season, I definitely buy a number of tangerines. I wish I could grow a tangerine tree. Turmeric root. We think of inflammation in the body. Turmeric is wonderful as a spice and even as a fresh food. I add, so often for breakfast, what I will have is I will take a sweet potato or a yam. I'll cut it up. I'll cook it up. And then I will put a little bit of butter and turmeric, and I'll create these beautiful orange, even more orange potatoes. It's very satisfying, and I have that with some kind of protein. So orange is a playful, very vibrant color, and it's so important that we get these foods so that we're protecting our body from the inside, acting as whether that internal sunscreen or even giving us a lot of these compounds which can perhaps affect some of our reproductive organs and even our hormones. So here they are in all their glory. So beautiful. Papayas and squashes and oranges, bell peppers and carrots. Don't forget to take the greens off of those carrots and make a pesto. Grind that up finely. You can use all parts of plants. The different parts of plants give you different types of nutrients. And during the red foods video, I talked about using those beet greens, not just the beet root, get the whole beet. Use the greens. And I even have a doctor friend in Chicago who likes to use the stem. He cuts it up finely and he puts that on his salads and in his soups. So lots of different things we can do with plants, lots of creativity here. So join me for the next video in which I talk about yellow foods and digestion.